Welcome to Behind the Service, real talk from the backbone of the industry. Today's guest is multi-talented, deeply insightful, and brings firsthand experience from the hotel's front desk. Let's dive in. Today, I am joined by Dr. Dominique Carson, an award-winning licensed massage practitioner, published author, journalist, and former overnight hotel auditor. She's someone who's worn many hats and brings such a rich perspective to the table. From working overnight shifts in Virginia Beach hotels to building a meaningful career in wellness and communication, Dr. Carson understands both the hustle and the heart behind the service. I'm so excited to dig into her story, her lessons, and everything in between. So, Dr. Carson, welcome to Behind the Service, and I am so glad to have you here.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so looking forward to share my story working overnight. I've been on podcasts before, but this is the first time I get to share my story of being an overnight auditor at a hotel. So this is a whole different type of podcast for me.
I sincerely appreciate you. A lot of guests or inquiries about being guests on the show. You know, it's a two-way exchange. It's about me having them on the show for the sake of my show, but also them being on the show for the sake of promoting what they have going on. And so while I am
Yes.
still gonna, of course, give you the platform because I want you to talk about your business as a massage therapist and all of
hmm
your things. I was so excited to see where you indicated that you are passionate about speaking about your experiences as an overnight auditor. So I'm so
hmm
excited because front of house and back of house are two different things. Front desk is like housekeeping's hard. It is. I've
Yes.
done both, and I chose housekeeping because I can't. I'll deal with somebody's toilet before I deal with somebody, and so I I would love to dive into your story, but before I get into the nitty gritty of like house of hospitality and those things, can we talk about what it is that you do now and that you're so passionate about?
Okay, so I'm still in it. I was still in it while I was still doing overnight. So I've
Mhm.
been a massage practitioner now for 6 years. I've been a freelance journalist for close to 20 years. If you look
Nice.
back on my student journalism days back in high school and all the other subcategories of me being an author, a researcher, that all blended in my career as a massage practitioner and a journalist. So along life, more entities were added, and overnight came in the mix.
Hmm.
I was just looking for some extra money to make like just to fund all the other projects that I was able to do. But I knew that can be difficult when you're a massage therapist because you have to usually work in the day and in the evening. And I was like, how about I could work at a gym or I could work at a hotel because they're always going to need people working overnight. It was risky,
Always.
and I applied to a few hotels on the strip,
Yeah.
and the hotel I worked for was a new hotel at the time. They were building it. They officially launched in June, and I started working for them that October.
Oh, yeah. That's it. It moves like that.
Tell my client, like, this is
And
not
you started off as a
sanitary.
night
I'm
auditor.
going to incur.
Did you have like any experience in the hospitality industry or in hotels or as a night auditor before that?
Not at all. But I had years of customer service. I was working since I was 14
Hmm.
years old, but I knew hospitality was going to be different. But my favorite pitch when I did interviews, I'm a fast learner, and I picked up
Yeah.
quick, like within 30 days. Just paperwork, audit, envelopes, front desk. Not only that I had to do the front desk paperwork, it was like I was security. I had the key to check on people's rooms,
You were an
towels,
MOD.
shock. We stocking the shelves, checking the stuff for the food, doing inventory for the alcohol, and because of my work at overnight, I had to do valet. And I knew that's why we had the wage that we had because it was like we were wearing six different hats. But amazingly enough, valet taught me how to be a better driver because I had to drive all kind of.
You got to practice with people's cars.
All kind of cars. Yes. I said I'll do any, but I just don't do stick. I don't drive stick. I'm not gonna even waste time. And the funny thing is, like all the women that I work with overnight, we were all women.
Mm-hmm.
All women, mostly women for like the first year and a half that I worked at the hotel. All the overnight auditors were majority women. We had second jobs. We had males that did the overnight, and then when
Yeah.
they worked with us, they took care of the vehicles for us. But when it was just two females, some of us were going together, some of us took care of the front. So it was some risky
Yeah.
situations
It's a lot of,
working
yeah.
overnight.
It's funny you talk about the valet thing and learning to drive better with other people's cars because, as you know, in hotel, especially in management and supervisor positions, it's all hands on deck all the time. So, I mean, you could be a kitchen chef, but if things are getting hot and heavy, you might end up driving some cars too. And so
Exactly.
I've been in plenty of situations where they're like, okay, we need help. Can anyone take valet? This day's going to be super crazy. This guy's out. Like, can anyone help manage valet? And I'm like, I will do literally every job in this hotel from top to bottom but valet. I promise y'all will be in a lawsuit. Y'all will have so many lawsuits on y'all hands by the time I'm done.
And I made a mistake. Like the first 2 weeks I did valet. So it was like a break that was close to when you enter the lot. And it was like it left a dent on a military's car. And the first thing I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my God, they gonna take this out my check. Like,
right?
And my GM, he was so patient with me. Man, I still love this man to death. And the funny thing is, he wasn't even supposed to interview me that day. It was supposed to be another manager. And he interviewed me. And he was like, okay, we'll let you know, like in a day or two. He called me back in 2 hours and was like, when can you start? I was like, what?
Oh, nice.
So when that happened, he was like, this is why we have insurance as a hotel. So that kind of like made me say, you know what, let me take a break from valet. But one night, one of my coworkers, they can't drive. So I didn't have a choice but to do valet again. And from that experience, I started driving all kind of trucks, the trucks, the construction trucks, like them big white, type of trucks you see in a movie theater when they trying to kidnap people. And imagine this 4'11" female, and my foot is barely reaching the accelerator. Like I couldn't barely reach it. But I said, you know what, Dominique, take a breath. It is around the corner. You're not driving this thing. You're just driving it to the main entrance to the hotel. And the more I felt comfortable, the more tips we were getting. Valet. And then they had their own valet. But the valet guys that were there, they only did the first and the middle shift. So when it was time for overnight, we had to do that. I think the most a valet stayed is until midnight or 1 o'clock. Like after 1 o'clock, overnight auditors, we were doing valet. And they would call for their cars the weirdest times. Because most people usually call for their cars like between the hours of 5 a.m. and 7, close to your end of the shift.
Yeah.
But then you get some guests randomly say, yeah, I want my car. At 3 in the morning? Like, where are you going at 3 in the morning? Like, stuff like that. Like, it just be the weirdest cases. And then we just had a lot of like downtime. And then when you get comfortable with the downtime, you get a call and say, hey, can you get this number 257? Yeah.
You're oh my goodness, you're so much better than me. And I remember thinking valet was just parking cars. Working at like resorts and understanding that there are logistics to where cars are going and like how to route them and making sure, like, especially when guests are booking in groups and like, how are we parking these cars and when are these groups leaving at this time? So we need to park these ones closer to the entrances and exits so that our valet team can get to them faster. And just, I didn't even realize that like there was a whole, and then like, handling insurance claims and tracking just so much. And then valet, they just do a lot of little things like, you have guests like, oh, I left this in the car, and his valet has got to, take the keys, go run and get it.
Yep.
And,
That used
well,
to irritate us.
Dr. Carson.
They used to irritate us, like when they picked up the car, when they go pick up the car, and you put it in the lot. It's in the lot. It's parked. You put it in the valet section where the keys are. 10 minutes later, you get a phone call from the same person. Oh yeah, I left my medicine. I left my daughter's hat. I left my daughter's coat in the car. What?
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to go back. So what we used to do, we used to have like the golf truck and take them to the valet, like take them to the lot and let them get it. Or we'll walk with you to the lot so you can get it. Like, we were not going to drive back. No, not that. No, we were not doing that.
I like that.
We were not doing that. No.
I know that you weren't valet, but obviously, like you said, you wore a lot of hats. For those that might be viewing and don't understand what night auditors are, because a lot of guests that check in, they just think when they're checking in at night, they just think they're talking to a regular front desk agent. And I've heard guests make little comments. Even my family members, like they'll see a front desk agent just at the desk, just working on a computer. And it's like, oh, what's she working on? Like, there's things. So could you just break down a little bit, if you could tell them, I'm like, man, overnight auditors are like accountants, but could you tell or describe what that position is?
Oh man. So depending on what type of hotel it is alone, if it's an independent hotel, if it's a franchise hotel, overnight duties can be different, but the gist of it, the nucleus of it is pretty much the same. So yes, you have the front desk paperwork that you have to print out before audit. Then you have the paperwork to print out by 3 a.m., 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. paperwork. They usually put it in a big envelope. You have to do that. Then you have to oversee the entire hotel. So you have to watch out who's coming in. You have to lock the doors at a certain time. You may have to serve stuff at the bar. You may have to fix things for clients. You may get a phone call and say, hey, I don't have enough towels. I don't have enough sheets. You have to make those type of phone calls too, as well. And then you have moments sometimes with computer technology. You have to get on a database or a toll-free number to call that person if something goes wrong with the audit. Yeah. Then you have to monitor the amount of clients that come in for the next day, take their deposits. It's like a whole series of steps that you have to do. And
you are the closing and beginning for everybody in the hotel.
So you have to make sure that your stuff is prepared. So when the first shift comes in between the hours, let's just say 7 a.m. to 3 a.m., they could see what you did with night audit, and then like, I'm not going to lie to you, it's a lot of downtime, like between the hours of 1 and 5, but you're kind of like security, because you're going to get people that are all kind of people checking in. And you have to make sure people check in until close to 3 a.m. And if those people don't show up, you have to charge them. And then they do show up after audit, they're still being charged for that night and the following night because they didn't check in. So it's like little miscellaneous things like that. And then secondly, you're basically security, because you're going to get all kind of people coming in. I remember we was getting a lot of homeless people, because we're by the Virginia Beach on the Strip.
Yeah.
They'll try to act like they were residents at guests at the hotel, and they weren't. So you gotta be like the eyes and the ears at the hotel too. And then secondly, you'll get drunks coming in, and we had to break up fights sometimes. We even had to call 5-0 for things getting out of control. Sometimes we even had to call management. It's a lot. Yeah. Working overnight. It's a little bit easier because it's not as much noise as the first two shifts, but you're basically like the eyes and the ears at the hotel.
It brings me back to because I was a former housekeeping manager, so coming in, starting my shift at 7 or 8 a.m., first thing we need to do, every department lead has to do, is sit down and look at pass-ons. And the first one you want to look at is overnight audit pass-on.
Yep.
And I would just read overnight audit poor girl, poor man, he went through all of this last night. And a lot of times, before we leave, our job is to make sure that not only PM shift, but overnight audit is set up. And so like on my PM shifts checklist that I created, we made sure that like, okay, houseman, your closet that you go to get your where your pillows are and your extra towels and stuff. Night audit doesn't. So let's have something set up for them so they can be able to go get it, come back, do whatever they need to do. But yeah, it's crazy. And you did that while running your massage therapy business.
I was actually a lead supervisor at a med spa. I was doing mobile on the side. I was doing all these other different projects. So sometimes my night would go from, like, I work at the med spa as a supervisor, like the lead therapist, do like a 12 to 8, come home. Because thankfully, my house was near the hotel. So I didn't have to travel far. So I would come home, get like a 2-hour sleep, and then I got to get ready to go to work. And that was my lifestyle for 2 years. And it got to a turning point. As much as I love the staff and, some of the relationships that we built working at the hotel, it was draining me physically and emotionally. Like the first sign was I had tonsillitis. I never in my life had tonsillitis and laryngitis. That was like the first sign my body was like, okay, like after a year and a half, I don't think this is going to work, because I was working full time as a massage therapist. And then I was working full time as a night auditor. I was doing 32 hours a week, but it didn't start off that way. I thought this was going to be like kind of like an on-call part-time kind of thing. But because of the type of worker I am, the more proficient I was getting, it went from on-call to being part-time.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, part-time, whatever. Everything is closed. It shouldn't be a problem. Okay. The more I'm getting good at this, they was like, would you like to do full-time? I was like, okay, full-time, more money. And I was like, no more than 4 days a week. And I have to have a set schedule. So my schedule will be Sunday through Wednesday. That was my schedule. And I thought I can handle it. And then after the first year, my body, like I said, the tonsillitis. And I was such a reliable auditor. That was the first time I called out at the hotel. Like I was in the emergency room, texting my manager and was like, I can't come in. And I had to show him proof of what my doctor was telling me, because I had acute laryngitis and tonsillitis. Who am I talking to?
Goodness.
Yeah. So that was the first sign. So you would think I would regroup, right? No. I just kept working and kept working and kept working. I was on a business trip to Canada. That was the turning point where I was like, yeah, I can't keep working the same way. Because by then I was doing more massages. I was doing more mobile massages. And I was just like, yeah, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
And then the hours decrease and decrease and decrease. And they still work with me. And then another sign where I was training a new night auditor. And I was almost 2 hours late to work. And usually my managers vouch for me. They was like, this is not like Dominique. She would call, anything happens. So thankfully I had a team that really vouched for me. That was my turning point too. Like, okay, we cannot keep doing the same schedule. So I went back to kind of like being on call part-time.
Yeah.
The downside is when people realize overnight and this is not for them, who do you think they're going to call back? So they started calling me back on the schedule. So it didn't feel like no longer on call. And I was preparing for my trip to Ghana. And I made a decision, and it was like a spiritual awakening. I want to put it, long story short. I put in my 2 weeks before I went to Ghana. And I said, this can go to a person that really needs this overnight job. But I learned so much working overnight. The relationships I built, it was a comedy. And then when you have amazing coworkers, and it was so cool because all of us overnight, we were kind of like in the 30s. So it kind of like worked itself out. So we kind of really related to each other because we were around the same age, and all of us had second jobs, literally. Like some of us was rushing from one job to the next job. And I was one of the few that was able to get a few hours of sleep. before going massaging clients for the day. So you can imagine that lifestyle that I had for 2 years. Yeah.
I really can. I love that it was positive for you, especially with your interactions with your coworkers, because like you said, uh, having a group of women, you're all around the same age, you all have more than one job. Some of them probably had families and children and spouses
Mm-hmm.
to go back to. That can look one of two ways. It can look like we are in this together because I know what it's like. Or a lot of times I have seen it vice versa, where it's like,
Exactly.
and so it gets hectic, and then and it kind of bleeds through the performance at front desk and to the guests, and so, and to guests, they get there and the hotel's quiet and nothing's going on. What this girl got an
Mm-hmm.
attitude for?
Mm-hmm. And the
Her
guys,
job
it was
doesn't even.
so, and that's why I said the guys were so cool. The guys that worked with us overnight, they were like our protectors too. Cause there was some alleys, like, cause we had like three main parking lots. So there was some parking lots that were like super dark. And
Yeah,
that's dangerous for women too. So one of us would
yeah,
get our car, pick up the other person and go into the lot so they can drive the vehicle and drive back behind each other. It was just for safety. We started having a protocol for safety. And like I said, it was not easy being up from 11 at night to 7 a.m. because those are the hours where people are sleeping. And I remember people in the middle shift, which is the 3 to 11 shift, was making comments about overnight. So I said, okay, put your money where your mouth is. Can you really do an overnight shift? So there was a few people, right, that from middle shift tried the overnight shift. They would say, I would never I would never talk trash about an
yeah.
overnight shift ever again. Cause it's not as easy as you think it is. It's the graveyard. It's called the graveyard shift for a reason. For real.
You don't have to tell me. I know what it's like just working at the front desk during the day, during an easy shift. I don't have the patience for it. So seeing the pass-ons from overnight, imagining being there by myself and having to take on everybody's roles, and it's not like I'm taking on everybody's roles consistently, so I'm able to prepare for it. It is as the guests decide. And now I'm like, I've seen even overnight, like, had to come in a little bit early because 11 o'clock shift had to get off a little bit early for some reason. Something happened in the kitchen. Now
Yep.
overnight is handling the front desk, and they got to go and pop chicken wings in the oven. Wouldn't be, no,
Yeah.
ma'am. So I, first, to you and all of the other overnight auditors, I would like to personally thank you. But I am, I'm so glad you were able to shed this light on this area of the hotel. There is a big, which I don't know if it existed in your hotel, but in many hotels and resorts that I've worked in, it has existed. And I know that it's consistent for it, at least in my world. There is a big feud or tension between front of house and back of house. Your front desk agents, valet, bellman, concierge, bartenders, servers versus your housekeeping, engineering, IT, yada yada. And then you got people like HR and sales. They in their own other world. They don't care what we got going on in ops. But what you just said with come and try our shift for a second. I've always said if there was enough time in the world, it would be great for everybody in the hotel to be able to just get a little shadowing of everybody's shift on their worst day. And I feel like the communication throughout the entire hotel would be so much more seamless and respectful because we fully understand what it's like. One of my questions that I had for you, and I always ask this, what is something that is like, it can be a guest exchange. It can be a situational moment that happened while you were a night auditor. But what is something that is so memorable to you? Whether it was funny, scary, upsetting, tear-jerking, something that you will always take with you and remember and tell about the time that you worked as a night auditor.
Oh wow, it's so many memories.
Right?
So many memories with my coworkers. Like I said, that safety drill that we did just to protect each other, that was one of the biggest things. Especially a lot of overnight auditors were women, especially us doing the valet. That was one. We remember some couples just trying to, plan their anniversaries, their honeymoons, seeing people with their kids, and getting ready for people's events. If they had conferences, galas, that was also overnight responsibility. Sometimes you'll get a text from management and say, "Hey, can you make sure? Can you start bringing the cookies and the juice and all of that stuff for the event that's coming up in the morning?" You had to look out for those messages too. Like this downside of the things that we saw was, the drunks. We saw the sex trafficking. That's why a
Yeah.
lot of us especially overnight, we had to take a workshop on sex trafficking. And
Yeah.
we saw situations where it was like a pimp and hoe situation.
Yeah. I think all
Yeah.
hotels do. That's like a
Yeah.
requirement for everyone to be able
Yeah.
to
But
recognize, like,
exactly. But it's like when you're learning it versus seeing it, it's a whole
yeah,
different experience. So we saw, we had cases where people OD'd, and we
Jesus.
had protocols to do that. We had to call in some situations where we had to bring police in. I remember there was two former best friends. They got into a fight and disturbing the noise. So as again, overnight, we got to deal with those type of calls when you get guests like,
Mhm.
"Hey, there's something going on at this side of the hotel. Can you straighten this out?" And I remember my coworker and I were saying, like, "Look, if you guys don't get this in order, we're going to ask you to leave." And we would definitely call the police this time around because
Yeah.
you're disturbing the other guests. So there was a lot of times that we had to be very stern and very strict
Yeah.
with with guests. So that could be a risky situation in itself.
Yeah.
But we had to do that. And amazingly enough, they listened to us. We had a lot of situations where unfortunately some valet drivers from previous shift have lost keys, damaged keys, and overnight auditors, we had to do a lot of damage control. Because when you come into the situation, like, okay, what happened the first two shifts? Why these people can't find their keys, or why keys are damaged? And a lot of times, a lot of that stuff was communication. But I would just say the biggest memory was the coworkers I had. It was just so, it was so dope. Like, it really was. And then I took that extra time, like the downtime. I remember bringing in books, my
Mhm.
laptop. I was able to do assignments that I needed to do. I did a lot of my book writing and stuff from working overnight because of the downtime. I remember doing a lot of my virtual speaking, videos and recordings, working overnight because of the
Yeah.
quiet time that I had. I was able to utilize that to my advantage. And they're like, "How did you do all of this?" Working overnight. So if I'm going to be up like this, take advantage of it. And then the only challenge was staying up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would have to drink a lot of energy drinks, sometimes the coffee, sometimes you got to walk outside to keep yourself up 7, 8 hours. It's a lot.
That coffee still haunts me to this day. I'm trying to quit coffee as we speak. I was in any hotel you work at, there will always and forever be an endless supply of coffee.
Yep. Well,
Always.
coffee I've been drinking since I was 12, so that's not going nowhere. I have accepted that. I wasn't one of those like, oh my god, I gotta have like 4 ventis from Starbucks. I wasn't like one of
Yeah.
those. I would just have like a coffee, and sometimes I may have to put a 2 espresso shot
Yeah.
to get through the shift.
Mhm. Oh my goodness.
Because
No, I
you can't be at the desk sleeping. Sometimes
yeah.
what we would do too, we would give each other a break. Like, okay, you can go in the back, take a nap real quick. I'll get up, you go in the back, take a nap, whatever. Because it's a lot. Like I said, being up between those hours when most people are sleeping is serious business.
I can
And
imagine.
anything
Oh
can
man,
go
I can
wrong at
imagine.
the hotel. And anything could go wrong at the hotel. And you don't know at any time when these managers are looking at the camera, they're gonna be like, okay, where the hell were y'all at? Like, there's so much protocols and steps that people don't think about when somebody has to work overnight.
One of the benefits of being a part of the executive team as my last position, I was able to work closely with a general manager. And I had a very active and engaged general manager. You have some general managers who kind of just sit
Mm-hmm.
out, which I've experienced those too. But my previous general manager was super active. And her favorite thing to do was look at those cameras.
Mm-hmm.
She would catch something and be like, "Hey, you want to come in here and look at what I see overnight doing? What I caught them doing last night?" And that would be our first thing to do in the morning, just look and
Mm-hmm.
either laugh or we would catch overnight sleeping in the break room, or we like. So yeah, no, they definitely watch and see, and if they don't, then they're probably a general manager that that's not their management style. But she watched everything, and obviously she didn't hold everybody accountable. She understands, but where it was excessive or if they were away from the desk too long, she'll go talk to them.
That's how our GMs were. Like they
Yeah,
understood, especially like I said, a lot of us had second jobs, so they understood to some degree.
yeah.
It was starting to get out of control for some overnight auditors that they had to let go. Unfortunately, terminate them when you start to abuse those privileges.
And it's guests waiting to check in, or somebody downstairs in the
Yeah,
book tower and you
exactly.
knocked out.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I said I'm glad when I put in my 2 weeks, I kind of left everything on a good mark. So, because you don't want to burn bridges, because you never
Yeah,
know when you need them for a reference. You never know when you need to come back. You never
correct.
know when you have to build relationships. So I was very grateful that I left. And then they just honored us like last year. I think it was an audit day. Actually, I think I still have it. One second.
Audit is so scary.
We just got these last year when I was working. Happy Night Audit Appreciation Day.
Oh,
So
nice.
yes, that showed their appreciation because like I said, we were kind of like the eyes and the ears of the hotel. And I think people underestimate what we do, and I'm glad it was the middle shift. It's never the first shift. It was people in the middle shift that really underestimated. And I don't underestimate what they do either, because they got to start work when people are clocking in, when people are checking
Yeah.
in, because check-in time is like it starts at 3 or it starts at 4. So
Yeah.
I don't, bypass your shift, but don't bypass mine. So I'm glad the few that was, judging the shift had a chance to see what is it like. And it's not fun as you think
My
it
thing
is.
is like,
Like,
what
no.
shift is fun? Maybe, maybe bartending. But what shift is fun? Because I've helped in the kitchen,
Yep.
and I'm not good in food and beverage
And we had to do the
environments.
drinks too. I
Yeah,
learned better from overnight from making drinks and what type of drinks to look out for. I had to say, do you want your stuff on the rocks or do you want it neat? And then they're like, neat. I'm like, neat means no ice. So just like little things like that. Like I already knew from people that I knew that were bartenders at one point. But when you're doing it and then they want to drink specifically outside of beer and wine, no. So I remember overnight being so busy that we had to tell them, like, look, all we could serve you is wine and beer. Because we had valet over here, we had
yeah,
complaints over here, we had to check clients, like we had to check. We didn't have time to do all that. Like, and it kind of disturbs the flow.
right.
Like when sometimes overnight, some of us may be late, and that kind of disturbs the middle shift from them to leave. And then the front desk, the first shift may be late, and that disturbs the overnight from being released, working 7, 8 hours a night. So it had to be a
Mm-hmm.
time flow and a balance to keep everything, all three shifts, flowing at the same time.
No, trust me, I understand, and that overlap and being responsible for somebody else's shift, that really does show a dedication and commitment. And like I said, when guests are coming in and out of the
Mm-hmm.
hotel, they don't realize that. They don't know that why you've been there since, overnight, and you're covering somebody's morning shift. There was a time in one of the hotels I
Mm-hmm.
worked at where we did have a disgruntled, overworked, overnight, frustrated employee. They felt that they were not responsible for staying for the person that consistently comes in late every morning. And so they left. And there was a good 45-minute to an hour window where nobody was at that front desk. And that is the scariest thing you can have go on. Oh my goodness. Nobody's there at a hotel. Yeah. Oh wow.
Especially valet. Like, I remember some days, like, I would have to stay an extra 30, 40 minutes because that person is not there 7, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I would have to stay. And it got so bad sometimes, general managers have to come in like maybe 2 hours before they shift to do valet with us because the other overnight auditor may not drive or they had to leave early. So it's like a domino effect kind of situation too. Yes, I'm getting more money, but that's like an inconvenience. Like, my eyes are wired and you're telling me I have to go and pick up this last car or put this last car in the lot after working 7, 8 hours. Like, that's why I said, thankfully, my house was so close to the hotel. But a lot of my other coworkers, they had to sometimes do a 20, 30-minute drive. Get ready, take a shower, and then go back to their next job.
I understand.
I was just very fortunate, but a lot of the other night auditors, they couldn't do that. So it was just kind of like, and I had to tell them, like, okay, just go. Like, I'll take care of it. It's no big deal. I don't have to be to work till noon. I got you. So it's like a teamwork kind of thing. But that strays away when somebody is, inconsistent with their time coming in. And managers, they look at that. So I think me being a dependable night auditor, I was able to get 2 raises.
Well deserved.
In the 2 years that I was there. I was able to get 2 raises.
For sure. I mean, it is so scary to hear like the perspective on jobs and employees these days. Like, I ain't giving that job more of me than yada yada yada. Or when my shift ends, I'm out. I already got my keys 5 minutes before. And it's like, are you required to give more than you sign up for? Absolutely not. I get it. But the common decency, the common courtesy of your like coworkers and the guests that you serve and the company that you work for that you care about, like that makes a huge difference. So good job to you, and you deserve those raises because you also have people like you who don't get that acknowledgement on those raises, and you have managers who forget. And they think like, well, this is what you're supposed to do because I do it, and it's like, some people sign up for 9 to 5 and they're going to get off at 5. And then others work 9 to 9 if they have to. They pick up extra shifts even if they don't need the money because they don't want guests to suffer. They don't want their managers to suffer. But no, I understand you. That shift, I wasn't working a second job, but I lived an hour away. I lived in a whole nother city and I had 2 babies and a husband at home and I was in grad school online. So I fully understand that, like, hour drive, staying overtime, driving an hour. There's been times where at one point I had my daughter at home and was pregnant with my second. At one point I was pulling over just to nap because if I didn't, I would swerve with me and my baby in my stomach. It was that bad. And so there are so many stories that are similar, and we all share the same experiences in so many different ways. And no matter what part of the country, Virginia Beach or anywhere you read, you're going to hear about it. And it's so funny because from the guest perspective, they have no clue. In their heads, they just came from their jobs with their crazy experiences. So they come into the hotel to woosah and don't realize that what we're doing there is our job with our crazy experiences. And so there's so many reasons why I created this platform, but part of it hopefully is to shed light on things like this. So next time, if hopefully a guest watches this episode and then they come and check in at 2 a.m., they're gonna say, I just learned what a night auditor does. I ain't gonna bother you tonight.
and we had guests say that. We was like, oh my gosh. I remember like we had guests tip us as females lovely because they saw us taking care overnight. And they like, yo, where the bills at? Like, So there was one lady, she was so sweet. She helped me and she gave me and my coworker a tip. And it was $60. And we was like, okay, do you need change? She was like, no, that's for both of
I
y'all.
love
That's
that.
30 a piece. I was like, come again? So that was the first tip. And then the big tip, I was working with a guest all week. I was picking up his car all week. He gave me $100 cash. And girl, that helped my gas. That helped my light bill.
Dr. Carson,
Yes.
I'm so jealous of you. So
$100
I think
cash.
in the 6 years that I have worked in hotels and resorts, I think I have been tipped maybe $100 total. And that is not because guests did not tip me.
Mm-hmm.
That's just because I went from college right into a managerial position. So I've always had a team under me. And so anytime that I was doing a service, I was either doing it with my team members or for my team. And so whenever I was given a tip, I always gave it to my team. The only time I've ever been tipped is if I ended up taking a board myself, getting my own cart, taking it to a room, and maybe I've gotten a $5 or a $2 bill there, and I kept it. But I have never been given a tip. And actually, I've been given a tip one time, and I cleaned a room with my assistant at the time. She was the assistant EH, and I was the EH. And she was having her baby, actually. And I was like, here you go, girl. She's like, Miss Courtney, that's for you. And I'm like, you was in that room, too. Here you go. And so, but that was on like $20. And so, I love it when guests can acknowledge people that they don't typically acknowledge. Because in general, you're taught to tip servers. You're taught to tip like in food and beverage and things like that. But when you're at a hotel, you don't think to tip your housekeeper. You don't think to tip the people that you don't see running behind the scenes. You don't always think. I see valet get tips.
Exactly.
Front facing serving guests, but overnight probably doesn't get tips all the time. And like you said, you tip servers during the day, you tip valet during the day, but you probably don't think to tip me, and I'm doing all of the jobs in one. So I hope that this draws attention to overnight.
I mean, yeah. So that showed that people were watching us when they weren't really watching us. And then we had this type of staff that showed appreciation to all the team members, whether it was parties, whether it was events, whether it was gift cards, anything that they couldn't do to show their appreciation, because you need all three. Yeah. You need all three shifts when you really think about it. You need all three. So the tips that we would get, like I said, they valet, they'll get the tips like the first two, and they have to split it. And then, they'll tell us like, okay, split it here and there. And then the tips mainly came from the valet. But when this particular lady, she gave $60, we were like, okay. She said, no, that's for y'all too. Y'all are here taking care the overnight. Like, and I was like, Tony, we got $30 tips. She was like, what? I said, yes, $30. And that filled my whole tank of gas. And then it was like an arm, like, I'm telling you, like, after a while, when I was getting my tips for valet, that was my gas money. That was my gas money for the week or two. Mattered.
I'm gonna probably like make this into a short and replay it because people in hospitality are servers. I don't care if they're not serving food. They are servers. They are providing service, and anyone that provides service deserves a tip. What we get paid hourly and what we do does not equate. And every dollar counts. And if you want to show appreciation, you better believe every dime that you contribute to tips blesses someone in ways you wouldn't imagine. Most people that are working in our industry have children. They are in school. They are starting businesses. A lot of the people in our industry, majority of our industry, are women with children or children on the way. And the other portion of our industry, another huge portion, are immigrants. They are people who are supporting families back home and here. They need your tips. So tip when you go to a hotel or a restaurant or a motel or resort or cruise or whatever it may be. I'm so glad you talked about tips. What advice from being an overnight auditor, what advice would you give to any current or aspiring hospitality professional? And two, or maybe not even advice, but something that you learned that you've taken with you since working in that position. And then two, after you tell us that, could you tell us a lot more about what you do now as a massage therapist, as a journalist? Tell us about your book and so many of the amazing things that is Dr. Carson.
Okay. So the biggest thing I would tell anybody that for working overnight or any area of hospitality, just have more grace. Like really try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Like really have that word empathy. And the older I get, it's like I re-exercise my thinking on empathy. And overnight was kind of like the ground roof for that and all the other personal matters in my life. But really exercise empathy because you don't know why that person has to work overnight. Like you said, somebody could be going to college, somebody could be working a second job, somebody could need the other job to pay debt. Like it was a lot of circumstances why people sacrifice overnight because you got to know what you're getting yourself into when you work in this type of shift. So I would say be more gracious, and then secondly, understand that overnight is it's kind of like, how can I put it? It's like I don't want to say the nucleus, but like the cell membrane to keep everything flowing, so the other two shifts can keep doing their thing because we made sure on our end everything was up and running from the overnight shift. So I would definitely say, and then fill out all three and figure out if which shift is best for you, which shift is best for your lifestyle right now. And then, like I said, my respect for hospitality grew even more. Like I already knew because I already had friends and colleagues that worked in this lane. But when you do it yourself, yeah, and like I said, it allowed me to do all the other things that I'm doing now, which I'm getting ready to talk about. My collaborative books, I was writing it working overnight. And a lot of my staff and coworkers bought my first collaborative book. A lot of them, like half of the team, bought the book. I was like, hey, I'm coming out with this collaboration book on entrepreneurship and wellness. Would you like a copy? And what I did was, in the acknowledgments, their names are in the book
Mm.
as a thank you. So you don't know who you come across in this hotel or your staff members that can give you the opportunity. So don't be looking down at somebody because they work in hospitality. You don't know who they know,
Yeah.
or you don't know how they can help you in other ways. So a lot of the projects that I was working on, I was working overnight. I got my honorary when I got my honorary doctorate, I was working overnight. I found out I was nominated working overnight. Like a lot of the stuff because I had to stay up. So I was looking at my emails, everything. And I was in the early stages of doing mobile massage in Virginia because I'm originally from New York City. But in the early stages of me working mobile, I was working overnight. So overnight became the cornerstone for me to do the things that I'm doing now. So I took a leap of faith where I was able to hang it up all together, but I could be on a platform such as this talking about my experiences, and I have those relationships. So if I have to go to them at any time and say, hey, Lisa, hey, Dalton, I have this event coming up, or hey, I would like to do chair massages at the hotel. Because I have a repertoire and a relationship and I didn't burn those bridges, you never know where that opportunity can go. So that led to where I'm working at right now, doing mobile massage business, working at a clinic, helping vets, mobile clients that are vets. And I was working on my massage therapy coloring book,
Oh, that's you
working
have a
overnight.
coloring book. Oh,
Yes, a massage
how
therapy
cute!
coloring book. Yes, it's for adults. It is for adults,
Yeah.
but you guys can educate your children with
Well,
the
I
massage
have
therapy
like
coloring books
the
too.
adult
So
coloring
this
books. They're like of birds with like really fine detail. I had the time to do it in college. Now I got two kids that don't
mm,
have time to do it, so they just scribble all over. But no, I love that. I have like everything. I have your Twitter, your professional portfolio, your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and it
Mm-hmm.
will all be in the descriptions on all of the platforms that I post this podcast on. I love
Okay.
supporting entrepreneurs. I love supporting small business. I love supporting Black business. I love supporting female businesses. I love supporting those who support me. You being on this platform is more than enough support. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
so excited. And I love all things wellness. I am not as well as I should be. I think my diet is
Thank you.
A1. I think that's about it. That's it. That's it. I eat good. But
Well, you're gonna have to come to Virginia to get a massage. And what I did was to allow people what understand what massage and what to expect. I created a free checklist where people can go to tipsmassage.com where they can understand what people should do when they're getting a massage, because 60% of people do not know what to do when they're getting a massage. So when they go in this domain, they can see a checklist on what you should tips to consider
so
before getting a
this is
massage.
behind the service. And because my background is hospitality, I focus on hospitality industry professionals. However, being a massage therapist is a service that you are giving a service. And so that is still within
Yes.
the realm of what we talk about. So could you, I know you have a checklist, but could you call out a few of the main or your biggest items that you're like, please do this before you come and lay on my table and get a massage? And I can think of one, but could you? My mom has like when I was younger, I think my mom hung out with my cousin a lot, and I remember my first time ever seeing a massage therapist come to the house. My cousin was like, "Hey, girl, let's get massages," and she came to the house, and I remember hearing the conversation of the massage therapist. She was kind of making her complaints, and my mom was like, "Oh my goodness, are you serious?" She was talking about like experiences she has had, and then my husband has blessed me with
Mm-hmm.
like an in-home massage experience for my birthday one year. And so I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten the luxury of speaking to other massage therapists and hearing their stories. And so, like I said, one trend comes up that I'm always shocked by. Like, are you serious? But please.
I would say out of the checklist, out of the 8 that I have, please
Mm-hmm.
arrive on time. Please arrive on time. I say this because you have time to do your consent forms, your intake, run to the bathroom, all of that good stuff. So that's the main thing I'm going to say, punctuality. Well, I already kind of said 2 all in one. But the other one is, don't be afraid to talk to your therapist and tell them, like, look, I had this. I need you to focus on this. This is the type of pressure I have. I promise you, you are not going to stroke my ego if you don't like my pressure. If you want more pressure, if you need less pressure, that helps me. It's a disservice to me and you when you're on the table
Right.
and you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
That does not help me or you at all. So I encourage my clients to speak up. And I already kind of know like what's going on with your body
Yeah.
language, but I'm gonna give you the wiggle room. And then if you're still struggling, I'm gonna be like, okay, do you need me to change the pressure? So this is what I've learned, the key, right? So if a client says, and I say to you, how's the pressure? Oh, it's good. If you say to me, how's the pressure? That's fine. Now, if you say the pressure is good, I'm like, okay, do you want me to stay at this level? Do you want more? Do you want less? Majority of the time, I get a client tell me I want less.
Mm-hmm.
It's little tricks. I have learned to change my verbiage over the years as a practitioner. I promise you. If a client comes to you and they say during a session, and you like, how's the pressure? And they're like, it's good. So what I do is a follow-up question and I say, hey, do you want more? Do you want less? And when I ask that way, a lot of the clients say I want less pressure.
Mm-hmm.
My verbiage had to change over the 6 years that I've been in this industry. Another thing is I would have to say that a lot of people want deep pressure, So I kind of start you out with the pressure to see if this is gonna fit, and you be surprised. A lot of people want you to stay at this pressure because touch is so subjective. Like my medium pressure could be somebody else's deep, and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
naturally heavy handed. So I warn a lot of people I'm heavy handed naturally. So I might start you off this way, and if you say yay or if you say nay, please let me know. I encourage my clients to talk. It helps me. It helps you. So we can get to the common goal. I promise you, you are not stroking my ego. Like you're really
We
not.
are
You're not
coming,
deflating
Dr.
my
Carson.
ego
We are
at
coming to
all.
Virginia Beach. My husband, whenever I have asked him to give me a massage, I think so. My husband's a large guy. He's 6'3", really large hands, really big feet, like big guy, buff too, gym head. And so as you can see, I'm not very large. And so I think he thinks I'm fragile. And my back be hurting. I'm 6 years housekeeping and 2 kids. I got a lot of yeah,
Got a
like
lot of stuff going
and I
on.
don't see a chiropractor often. My body's out of alignment. Like my back hurts sometimes. I don't even like our bed no more. I wake up like, oh, we need a whole new bed. And so there have been times where he's like, I can tell he's like being super soft, and I'm like, just go real hard, act like you're gonna break me or something. So it's funny that you say like it's subjective, because you're right. Because then if I tell him to really go and he starts really going, I'm like, all right, okay. Oh my goodness. So those were your only two. I can say the third one for you if you don't want to say it.
Okay. Sure.
Shower, especially if you just finished having intercourse. Shower. It is disrespectful to lay on somebody's table.
Yes.
After you just finished doing your due or going to the gym or whatever it may be. If you have any bodily fluids that are not still inside of you, get them off of you before you go and lay on somebody's table to touch you. I never would have thought that someone would have to say that, but I'm telling you, I have met too many massage therapists that have made that comment, and I'm like, you too? You don't experience that? People just do the do and get off the table and say, I'm gonna go have a massage?
Yes, we had to say that. Yes, seriously.
Ooh, I can't hear you, but I see your neck moving.
Yes, we've had that, like horrible, and a lady, like it was like horrible, like smelling, like, and I had to tell my client, like, this is not sanitary. I'm going to encourage you to take a shower, wash your body before you come in here. Like, hygiene is everything. It is crucial.
How inconsiderate. I can't, like, it makes me imagine, because to have to tell someone that, it makes me wonder, what do people do when they go to the dentist? Like, I just had a dentist appointment yesterday. I full on flossed and brushed my teeth before. I full on flossed and brushed my teeth before getting on set with you. And it's virtual. You know what you get me? So I'm so it makes me like, I'm sorry that this wasn't taught, but if I get any platform to say it on, I'm gonna say it, because that is so not fair. There are so many things that people that give service to other people want the people receiving service to know, and so I'm glad that we're able to share that. Yes. So be punctual, be communicative. Do not be afraid to let your massage therapist know how you're feeling, what conditions you may have, what type of pressure you need to be comfortable on the table. And last but certainly not least,
and your paperwork. Fill in your paperwork. Your paperwork.
Goodness. Before we close out, is there anything that you would like to say to the audience? Is there anything that you would like to add or share before we close out?
Just show more gratitude to your hospitality staff members when you're entering any type of hospitality occupation, especially the hotels. You know, they They really need it, especially now me having the hands-on experience. It's an operation. Everybody got to get their oil to keep everything running and operating. So, like I said, have more grace.
Because people be coming in hotels like they lost their darn mind. That's why I can't do front desk.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I can't do it. Because I before I realize it, especially if it's towards the end of my shift and I'm already tired, before I realize it, I'll ask, who are you talking to? And there's certain things you can't do with guests, and I understand that. I respect that. So I will step aside. But like at the end of the day, outside of this hotel, we are all humans. We are all adults, and my parents taught me, at least, that I should respect people and they should respect me. So what are you doing at this desk right now? Because this name tag and this uniform has nothing to do with how you treat me. What's going on? Do we need to? You got some guesses like, do we need to call your mama right now? Because what is going on? Yep. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Carson. I am so excited to post this episode. You were such a bright light. You were so fun and energetic, and you shared a lot of valuable information and experiences. I'm going to go ahead. Thank you so much.
I really had a great time.
Oh, I'm glad you did. Well, thank you so much. I am going to keep in touch after the episode. I pray that we can get to Virginia Beach sometime. We are all the way in Ohio right now. But I pray that we can get to Virginia Beach just for a family vacay. And as soon as we get there, I'm going to say, Dr. Carson, I'm here. I made it. We out of all the vacation spots, we chose Virginia Beach just so I can come get a special massage.
Yes. I will be honored. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Carson. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for coming on Behind the Service.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. When are you